It is episode 10, ladies and gentlemen, of the PWBA Podcast. Hard to believe we're already at episode 10. Obviously, 2 episodes a week for 5 weeks. So I think we did 1 the first week, Aaron, and we've been doing 2 ever since. But we are in episode 10. It's been a fun ride so far. We've got plenty of guests still lined up and ready to go, including one today. Before we get into that, Aaron Smith, how are you today? Of course, my name is Emil Williams Jr., but I'm more concerned about Aaron Smith's well-being as we end this great week here on Friday afternoon.
See, I thought you would be more concerned about the length of my hair at this juncture and the lack of... It's just getting everywhere. It's getting tough to manage, but, other than that, I'm doing well. It's starting to warm up here in Texas, so pretty excited about that. And, of course, it's a new month. It's May. Yeah, I'm ready. Obviously, Emil's getting his grass cut as he turns his mic off for a minute. But I'm doing great, Emil. Hopefully, you and the family are doing well, too.
We are doing well, Aaron. Thank you very much. Yes, it is Friday. I thought today or a couple of days ago was grass cutting day. So bear with me in that regard, folks. That should subside at some point. But without further ado at this point, Aaron, we're good. I'm good. Our next guest also is very good. And we're going to show you how good she is as we bring her into the show here momentarily. This young lady, 4-time Team USA member, 2017 Intercollegiate Singles Champion as well. Here's a clip from last year's, of course, 2019 PWBA season. An honor score, of course, for the young Sydney Brummett, Sid the Kid, as we give you all 3 shots here of her 10th frame. This is in Tucson, by the way, and the final professional event at Golden Pin Lanes. What an event that was. Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you miss that event?
I did miss that event. I was taking part of the Senior Masters and Super Senior Classic in Vegas. I believe Terry Bigham came in to relieve me. Look at you, E, on the ground.
Oh,
right
look
there.
at that. IG Live. I didn't know I was going to be featured in this.
Let's go.
How about that?
There it is.
The 300 game for Sid the Kid and the hug from the roomie, Bryanna Coté. We'll talk about Bree and the roomie situation here with Sid throughout this podcast. But there indeed is Sydney Brummett. Sid, welcome to the PWBA Podcast. We've got, of course, some live folks watching on Bowl TV. We'll have some questions going around. But Sid, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me.
It's been a fantastic week so far. Big shout out to the Sport Bowling Show with Chad Murphy, Mike Flanagan, and Jean-Marc Mandione, Jason Thomas. They had a special guest, Wendy McPherson, on today as well. And if I remember, Sid, you talked about something, just briefly making a comment, talking about Wendy. And if I remember what that is, I'll get back to that later in the show. But we want to start out with just some general notes in regards to how are you, your well-being, and what's going on, what you've been doing during this quarantine period.
I'm doing good. I'm healthy and safe at home, and my family is healthy, and my parents are both essential workers, so they have to be cautious a lot of the time when they're coming home. But overall, I'm good, just making sure to keep my sanity and try and stay as normal as possible.
That can be difficult, obviously, at this point in time. From a bowling perspective, how are you staying busy and trying to prepare yourself both physically and mentally for the season that we certainly still hope that we have during this time period?
Yeah, mentally it's a lot because I have more time and availability to do that. So I'm on my 3rd book already of the quarantine. We've been in the quarantine since March 24th. So on my 3rd book, and I'm really enjoying those, just learning a little bit more. And I don't believe in adopting every principle that's in the books that I read, but rather taking them and intertwining them all together to make the best practice for myself. And then physically, I have the Bowl U orb, which is the hardest thing I have ever tried to use. But when I went to the Wichita State for a visit a year or so ago, Coach L saw something in my game and had me use it, and it shifted my whole perspective on my swing plane. And so I've just been kind of using that as my best friend because I actually hate drills. I'm not a fan of them at all. And now that I'm at home, it's all I get to do. So it's a little bit of karma for me, I think.
Coming back around.
The coaches are always right.
Coach L, a pretty good one at that too. So,
Oh, for sure.
shout out to him, Coach V, of course, all the staff over at Wichita State, and obviously Emil mentioned the hopes of having the season coming up here in 2020 in some type of form. Obviously, we're letting the conditions kind of dictate that, and nothing for certain yet. But kind of looking back at your first 2 seasons, now this would have been your third coming up. Just how would you assess, the early portion of your career on the PWBA Tour?
That's a tough question because I feel like I had 2 first seasons. And the reason for that is because my first season on tour, I threw 14 pounds. And constantly talking with the tour team, they kept saying that's the reason that you're not seeing what you need to see. 14-pound bowling balls have higher RGs. And so it makes them want to get further down lane before they start to transition the correct way or the way I need them to be able to strike a higher percentage. And so that first year, I threw 14 pounds and I was very stubborn. And I didn't learn as much as I could have because of that stubbornness. And then the second season came around, and around November, December, going into that second season, I made a very rash decision 2 weeks before team trials to switch to 15 pounds. And even at that point in time, I was still too stubborn to learn. I just wanted to understand and have the tools to win, not necessarily have the understanding. And so I went to team trials. I'm bowled fine there, considering that I had just switched to a whole different way of bowling ball 2 weeks prior, and walked into that second season with a very different mindset and the determination to grow and learn. So really, I wish I could redo that whole first season so that way I could have learned more than I did.
Now that's interesting. Had you used 14 up to that point? Was that really your first time going to 15, or had it been 15 in the past?
No, I had used 14 my entire life. Sometime, I don't quite remember the age, but sometime during my youth bowling career, I had an injury in my right arm from bad fit. And I was just constantly scared to go to 15 pounds. And then on top of that, my collegiate seasons weren't bad. I had a decent average most of the time I was at Wichita State and continuously was bowling well for the team. And so Coach L and I never saw a reason to switch. Looking back on it, I think 14 pounds is a really big reason for part of my success in college, because I could stay in slower bowling balls longer than everyone else because the core inside of it actually wanted to go a little bit longer. So I was able to maintain a smoother ball motion for a little bit longer, and I think it helped. But no, I'd tried it one time and I hated it. So I didn't do it. But I knew I wanted to win on the tour, and I knew after finally giving into my ball reps that I needed to do it.
Before we move on, I just wanted to, the viewers probably saw me smile when you said that you had decent averages at Wichita State. I mean, let's just be honest here, okay? You're like a 3-time first team All-American, so, you're pretty good still. Don't come to the PWBA podcast talking about I'm decent.
No, I never looked at my stats. I remember looking at it one time, and it was for motivation. My first semester at Wichita, I think I averaged 176, which was not good. I had a 180 turnaround going into the second semester, and I didn't travel very much that first semester, and I am so grateful that Coach L left me home. He left me home for, I think, 2 or 3 events, and then decided to take me to the Vegas tournament. And I specifically remember thanking him for that, because being home for that amount of time allowed me to train and realize that the team was more important than me, and that I just needed to get better at certain things in order to contribute.
Excellent point there. And then a couple of things just kind of stood out there to me. One, you were, able to humble yourself and think about your own individual improvement in that sense, and be okay with that. And obviously the coaching staff recognizing and identifying some things that you could work on to make you better, and you went out and did it.
Yeah, for sure. The coaching staff at Wichita State was incredible. Every time I asked them, I was a question asker. And so they always had answers for me. And there was one time I specifically remember walking into Coach B's office and I told him, Coach, I want to make Team USA. Do you think I can do it? And I hope he doesn't get mad at me for this. But he looked at me and he said, no, not right now. And this was October going into team trials. I said, oh man, what do you think I need to improve on? And he gave me a list of 3 things and sent me out of his office. And he said, if you work on these 3 things, I think you can have a shot. And I worked on those 3 things and the rest is history.
It's a good note for the kids at home. Got to have an open mind, especially when it comes to coaching, stuff like that. I know I always had a hard time with that. I always wanted to kind of, if I was focused on one thing, I just wanted to focus on one thing. But, you know, you need that honest assessment. And, of course, Wichita State is going to provide that. So, once again, another great shout out to the coaching staff there and to you as well for, you know, being accepting to it, because I think that's tough for a lot of young players too.
Oh, it was the hardest thing. I remember leaving his office, like, trying not to tear up because all I wanted to do was make the team. And I was just like, oh, man, he just told me I'm not good enough right now. But that was a hard pill to swallow. But after taking, you know, a day or so, I wrote down those 3 things and posted them on my wall and decided to work on them.
Speaking of working on things, name a couple of things, but if you can give us at least one physical item, one mental item that you have worked on the most since becoming a professional.
Physically, I have been trying to use my legs more for what feels like my whole life, but especially since I've been on the tour. I've predominantly been upper body my whole life. My legs haven't been very strong. And that's also why I've been getting into the gym a lot more and taking my workouts a lot more seriously over the last year or so. Is I just needed more strength in my legs. And I needed to be able to actually, one of my new tour rep guys said it best to me, I needed to be able to get my hips more underneath me as I'm going into the line so I can use my legs more. And now that I'm a little bit stronger, I'm able to do that more. And so I'm constantly working on using my legs. When we were at Bowl Expo this last July, for the whole time that we were bowling, I think Lauren Pate and Bryanna Coté were constantly being like, use your legs, to the point where I was just kind of annoyed, but they were always helping me. Mentally, it's a little bit tougher. I think for me, since being on the tour, it's self-belief. I'm young, and so it's sometimes difficult to look at the women I'm bowling against because I want to have respect for them and what they've done in the past, and I want to admire them, but also look at myself as their competitor and that I am good enough to win on the tour. And so mentally, it's working on having the self-belief to win while balancing that with respect for the other ladies out there.
Excellent points, and I'll keep it kind of on the mental perspective because recently I was on Instagram and I saw this particular post from you, and just kind of obviously with what's going on and what we're enduring, how the need for mental health professionals and how one can understand thinking about the well-being of those or everyone really all around the world. So just talk about how you've come up with there's 3 things that you listed that help you stay mentally tough kind of throughout your weeks and every day.
Yeah. So one, I do think that it is right now is a time for healthcare professionals and mental health professionals especially. They're correct in saying that it's really weird, right? Because especially as elite athletes, we do not know what to do right now, especially on the PWBA. There's a lot of unknown. And I think the unknown is what's toying with a lot of us. Talking to a few of my fellow other athletes, it's just like, when are we going to get to bowl? Are we going to get to bowl? How do I structure my training? And so for me, the only thing I know how to do is control what I can control, which is my daily actions. And that's where those 3 things come from. And one is having a list of 10 things that I'm grateful for that day. It's really interesting how with shelter in place, those things have become more simple, like petting my dog, her being there, my family being safe, rather than a little bit more like materialistic things that my gratitude list used to be. And then another one is my power list. So I actually didn't come up with that. It's a guy, his name's Andy Frisella. He owns about 7 different really big companies, and he came up with a power list. It's just 5 things that I promised to myself that I am going to get done. And I want to get them done with the intention of reaching a goal. So for instance, one of my power list tasks for today is to track all of the food I put into my body and all of the water I put into my body, because I can't manage what I don't measure. So I need to be writing all of that down. I actually use an app, so I put it into my app and I'm good to go. If I don't track all of my food and I want to lie to myself about what I'm putting into my body, then I can't cross that item off. And then I have to circle on the side there says win-loss. And I have to circle a loss for the day, which I don't like losing. So that's not cool. And I don't want to do that. So I track all of my food. I do my workout. I read. And then depending on the day, I have a couple of other list tasks that I will put on there. And then what was the other one? I lost my train of thought. It was the 10 things and then my power list. Oh, and planning my day. How do I forget about that? Planning my day. I'm obsessed with my planner. And normally when life is good and I don't have to be at home, I will plan out the things I'm doing. Like I'm going to practice from, 9 a.m. to 11, and then I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to eat lunch. And I love filling it out. So now I have to find things that I'm doing at home to fill it out with. But even those little things give me joy. So like Wednesday nights is Survivor. I watch Survivor with my mom. I get really excited about that. But it's just like having those plans for my day that get me really, really excited.
All right. Now I have to ask, being on the PWBA podcast, was that on any of the lists for today?
Yes, it was on the list for today. The main goals is the PWBA podcast, and I have a paper due for my master's program tonight. So
how about
those
that?
are my 2 big things. Yep.
All right. What's the paper on?
It's about leadership theories. I'm getting my master's in organizational leadership in higher education. So it's basically just about how to lead students through their college experience in the best way possible. I'm writing my paper on transformative leadership, which is basically about how a leader can help the person that they're working with rather than just have transactions with them, like, hey, do this or do that.
Interesting. All right.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, we've talked a little bit about a few different things, obviously kind of assessing and looking at things you're working on, but obviously the PWBA Tour is a lot of fun too. So for you, what have kind of been your favorite moments so far throughout your young career?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the time off of the lanes. Like, there are so many memories that I have just like not bowling. Like, of course, bowling is really, really cool. And we have a lot of fun doing it. But at the same time, I remember going to SeaWorld with Bree when we had the U.S. Open in Orlando. That was a big thing for me with Bree and Randy. I got to see sharks, so I freaked out. I was super pumped.
You love sharks.
Not a lot of sharks in Indiana.
No, there are no sharks in Indiana. And then there are times where, like, we go through the drive-through and we just ask people silly questions to the people that are serving us, or when we're at a restaurant, we ask them silly questions. And I think it's those memories of just having a good time that I hold really dear to my heart.
Bree and, or I should say your roommate situation, obviously, for those who don't know, it is Bryanna Coté, and we will talk about her specifically in just a second. I want to take it back to 2018 for a minute. At the USBC Queens, your official rookie season at that point, and you just miss making the show. What did you learn from falling short of that particular TV show at that point that has kind of continued to remain with you throughout last season, and some additional things you may have learned from that experience?
Yeah, that was a really cool event for me for a lot of reasons. One, I love the Queens. It is probably the tournament I most want to capture and the event I most want to capture a title in at this point in my career. I love the idea of having a tiara. I don't know why. I didn't even want to be a princess growing up, so I don't know why that's still like alluring to me. I think it's cool. So that event was awesome because I believe I lost in like the first round, either the first round or the second round of the bracket. And I remember calling my dad. I'd never been to the Reno Stadium before, so I'm like meandering around there. And I called my dad, and I'm angry. I'm so angry. I'm like, man, I shouldn't have lost this match. And everything that went wrong could have went wrong, because I think I had like a 60-pin lead going into the last game. And I believe I was bowling Anna Anderson. I'm not sure if I pronounced her name correctly, but she's incredible, and she deserved to win. But I just felt like I had lost that one. And I called him up so angry. And he was like, there's nothing you can do about it. He was like, you literally just have to bowl the next match. And I was like, oh, you're probably right. So I shoot up, and I bowled my next match. And then I think I bowled 7 more right after that. And it's just a really, really cool thing to have to go through the hardest road possible to even come close to making the show. And then I get to the 4-person match to make the show where 3 people make it. And that was just really cool because of the people who were a part of that match. And my ball reps and I had talked beforehand, came up with a game plan, and I promised myself I was going to stick to that game plan. Well, the problem with that was my gut said something different in about frame 7. So I stuck with the plan like we had written down, but what I took most from that event and that tournament is that I need to stick with my gut, not the plan. You know, just because I wrote down something and it's supposed to happen doesn't mean that it's right. And I went from bowling matches with 2 people on a pair to bowling a match with 4 people on the pair. And I had actually struggled during qualifying that year where I think we had about 4 people on the pair. So it made a little bit of sense why I struggled, and I probably should have reassessed from qualifying rather than from the matches I had bowled. And so I think the main thing is to trust my gut and to not overthink it and just do what it says to do, because I've bowled so many shots in my life, and they're all stored in my memory. And if I see something, my brain's going to go back to that memory and say, hey, I saw this that one time, and this worked. And that's what makes that gut intuition. And so I wish I would have trusted that.
Now, the Queens, we're running a little fun social media thing right now in the PWBA with the Ultimate Queens Bracket Challenge, looking at past champions, kind of reliving the history of that event. And that's been a lot of fun, you know, for us on our side and hopefully for the fans too. But, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, the element of the bracket, the 3-game match, just you against another person. What's the mindset going into something like that? How much does the opponent dictate that too? I mean, is there an intimidation factor when you catch someone like a Liz Johnson or, you know, Shannon O'Keefe, just for example? But just kind of talk through your process heading into the bracket match at the Queens.
Yeah, it is a little different than anything that we've done before. I had only made match play at the Queens in my tenure of bowling PWBA events. And so it's not really that different for what I was used to in comparison to something like this, the Players Championship, where it's just round robin. So for me, it's not any different because I don't bowl that person, right? Of course it's my score versus theirs, but we don't get to tackle people in bowling. I can't do anything to her. So I just have to play my game, and hopefully my score beats hers at the end of the day. But of course, as I said before, with my mentality, it is difficult not to look at that person. Like, I specifically remember at the 2018 Queens Bowling Rocio, and I was looking up at the scoreboard, and it's real big in Reno, and it said Sydney Brummett and Rocio Restrepo. And I'm sitting there as somebody graduating from Wichita State. She's like my elder, so I need to respect Rocio, and then I respect Rocio for what she's done on the tour, and I'm like, this is scary. And I think it was probably my 5th match or so, and luckily, one thing that I do, and I'm a little hesitant to share it because I think some younger girls will pick up on it, but it's been really helpful for me, and it's that at the end of every practice, as I was younger, I would try and strike out. I would strike out before I would leave the bowling center, 3 in a row, and that was it. Well, when I got to Wichita State, they taught me about visualization, and then when junior year rolled around, I got really serious about that. And I started visualizing myself, particularly at the ISC show, and what the show was going to look like, and everything that was going to happen, what I would see, what I would touch, what it would sound like, and what the hot lights would feel like. I remember my teammates would pick someone who was also bowling the ISC. And they would say, hey, you're bowling Susie. And I would be like, oh, okay. And I would visualize her sitting in the chair and then bowl my 3 shots until I would get there. Because then my brain thinks that I've already won. My brain knows no difference between what's real and what's fake. And so luckily I write all of those down in my bowling journal. And one of the people that, once I started bowling people, in title matches in my head, one of the people that constantly gets brought up is Rocio. And luckily I had my bowling journal and I could go back and look at every practice. And I'm like, okay, I remember counting. I'm like, in my head, I've done this before. And I'm like counting the amount of times I had done that. And I was really grateful for my bowling journal in that moment because, one, it kept my focus off of her and what she was doing and my focus on me, but also that it was possible for me to beat her.
That is very, very interesting stuff. And I think it's something that, we get to see out on tour quite a bit, just being there week to week. But how many of the players do have, a journal, a book or something just to keep notes for things like this? And I'm sure it's a little different for every player, but just how, as much as thumb tape or, different, different soles for your shoes to slide differently. I mean, I feel that's kind of turned into an essential item, similar to those things that every bowler kind of needs if they want to compete at that level.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I use it in practices to write down exactly what I did. It's kind of a calming factor for me because I can go back and see that I have done the training. And then on top of that, I get to write down all of the competitions I've been through. And then one piece of advice after 2018 that Tish Johnson gave me, when I was bowling next to her, she said, hey, take all of that and put it into Evernote. And she was like, then you can search the bowling center and you can search the lanes and it'll tell you exactly what you did on that pair at that point in time on what pattern. And that was super helpful. So now I keep my bowling journal by hand because some events we cannot use electronics. And so I don't want to change my routine just for those events. I'd like to keep it as same as possible. So I just use my notebook at all times.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Nice question there, Aaron. I like how you worded that. Well done.
Every once in a while, I get a good one.
So let's get back to the traveling. Your roommate, Bryanna Coté. You guys obviously are rooming together, so you get to share these memories and moments like you talked about a little bit. So please, if you can, tell us a great travel story that includes, of course, both you and Bree. Or multiple stories, too, if you have.
We don't travel a lot together because we are in very different parts of the country. She lives in Arizona and I live in Indiana. So we don't travel a lot. And my flights often get canceled, so she's usually waiting on me. But one time after the Tucson stop, so it wasn't particularly to a PWBA stop, but we had just bowled Tucson last year, and we decided to bowl a smaller event in Phoenix on, I believe it was on Sunday. So the tour stopped on Saturday, we were going to go bowl on Sunday. And I slept the whole car right there, which she wasn't super excited about, but that's what I do. And so I slept the whole car right there. We bowl, we eat Olive Garden for dinner because that's what we do. And then we get in the car and we're probably I want to say 3/4 back to the way to Tucson. Granted, the desert feels like infinity, so I don't really know if it was 3/4 of the way there. But we get 3/4 of the way back and traffic comes to a dead stop. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And Bree decides that she has to go to the bathroom so bad. Well, mind you, there is no exit anywhere near us. We're in the middle of the desert. There's going to be a road runner or something, and I'm going to freak out. And she has to go to the bathroom so bad. And I am just being ridiculous because that's all that I usually do. And I'm out the window yelling at this guy with the dog in his car, singing rap songs, and she's dying laughing this whole entire time. And I'm just trying to make it so awful for her.
I was going to say, which is generally not good when you're in that situation.
No, it wasn't. But it was an incredible time and definitely a really good memory for the both of us because we were just enjoying life. It was really funny.
Okay, that qualifies as a good story. All right.
That does.
Now, how
the dog
did that...
was really cute. So we were trying to talk to.
Well, that goes a long way, though. So, So how did you and Bree kind of end up becoming tour roommates? How did that friendship kind of start?
Yeah, I made Team USA for the first year in 2017. And so we went to camp, and I happened to be the only rookie that year that got to go to camp. And so I was really scared and didn't say a lot because I'm around. Like the closest person to me in years on the team was Josie at the time, I think. She had 6 years. And so I just felt like such a newbie because they all have really great relationships together, and I was really scared. And Bree was really sweet, and she was they were all talking about the tour, and I was just kind of sitting back because one, I'm a rookie on Team USA and I'm about to be a rookie on the tour, so I'm just trying to like soak up everything they're saying. And Bree was like, I don't have a roommate for next year. And I remember being like, well, I don't have a roommate. And we knew nothing about each other, but we became roommates on that day.
How about that? Team USA camp, bringing people together. I like it.
One day at a time.
Wow, that is dope. That's a pretty cool story. And keeping on the theme of Team USA, to me, it seems like you've been on the team for a while at this point. And I think 4 years is a long time, and I think that's going to continue in your favor in that regard. So up until this point, give us some of your favorite moments. And even some favorite camp stories. I think your roommate situation would rank up there as a good camp story.
Yeah, I really love Team USA. It's been my driving force for a long time. I think similar to a lot of girls, in the same age bracket as me. Because growing up, we did not have the PWBA to look up to. The only elite level women's bowling was Team USA, and so I started bowling junior gold when I was 12. And at that time, we didn't have divisions. So I specifically remember bowling with Danielle and Josie one of my early years of junior golden. That was really cool, getting to look up to them really early and see them, get their junior Team USA medals. And so Team USA is everything to me and will forever be, I think. And hopefully I'll be a part of the team for as long as possible. I really love representing the country. And I think my favorite memory for now is winning the silver medal with Missy in doubles at PABCON. That was just really cool because I had looked up to Missy for so long, and at that particular event we were also roommates. And so getting to spend that time with her and get to know her better, and seeing that these women are human, just like I am, is really cool. And also at PABCON, one of my favorite memories off the lanes, we were playing, I don't remember what the game is called, but it was ridiculous. And it was so much fun. We were sitting in one hotel room around this small little table playing cards. And I remember I think you had to slap something. It might have been flapjack. And you had to slap the table, and we were all just laughing the whole time. And it was really those moments that I'm so grateful for.
I'll have to admit, I've never heard of slapjack before, but I have slapped a few blackjack tables that their dealer has rudely found their way to 20 or 21. So I feel that's different, though.
I think it's like if a jack lands, like everybody lays a card, and if a jack lands, you slap it, and then if you get it, if your hand is the first to touch it, then you keep those cards. Whoever ends up with all the cards wins. I think is how it goes.
I would have guessed you played Skifo, but clearly you didn't.
I didn't learn about Skifo until I went on tour, and it was last year at the U.S. Open. Bree and I and her close friend Sarah, we played Skifo quite a bit, but I am a novice in comparison to Bree. She is incredible at Skifo.
That's so funny. It's I've seen I think you guys posted something recently about that game being played in your household, and they instantly thought that, where's Bree, where's Sarah? Because every time I hear Skifo, I just think of them because they're the only people that I know that play it, and of course now you.
Yeah, well, my family is being very sweet. They recognize that I have to stay home by myself all day. I get really excited when someone comes home. And so they play Skifo with me every night because I really love Skifo. So we have a tournament going on, and we are keeping track of who wins. So hopefully by the end of Shelter in Place, we'll have a winner We don't know what the prize is, but we'll figure it out.
Excellent.
Very nice. Emil, do you want to get into a few fan questions? I know we got one or two in the chat.
Yeah, I want to take a time and thanks to everyone who is watching and joining us on Bowl TV. Thanks to Chris Pulliam. Jasmine is in the building. Earl Woods is watching. Thank you for your questions. Chris has got a couple questions, Sid, and we'll get into your collegiate career next, but this is a good segue into it. He asked, can you please talk about the transition from collegiate bowling to being a professional in the terms of developing your own fan base, bowling bowl with the pros, the pro-ams, and just kind of general interactions with fans?
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. My very first tour stop, I had the opportunity to bowl the Pro-Am, and I went out to the truck to drill a couple balls, and I remember looking at Bree and saying, what do I do? Because I was like, how do I be the pro? And they had to teach me. I was like, what do we do? When's roll call? How do we know where we bowl? It was a whole new learning curve. And so that was definitely different. And my first couple of Pro-Ams, I definitely was shy and wasn't talking to a lot of people. And then I realized that I just needed to be myself and interact with the fans. And so I think for me, I'm not really worried about growing my fan base. I'm just worried about being me. And if people want to follow my journey, I'm grateful for that. But I'm not really too worried about growing a fan base at all.
Okay. All right. I like that. His second question is, and I believe this is in reference to a particular sports team that you may follow. It sounds like a team in Las Vegas, perhaps the Golden Knights of the NHL. His simple question is, why the Las Vegas Golden Knights?
Okay, that's a really good question, and I get it a lot. A lot of people think I'm a bandwagoner, but I am not. My mother is a really big Penguins fan, and my family is, except for me, my family is all Pittsburgh everything. So I don't really follow in their footsteps with that. But I grew up watching a lot of hockey. We have a local team here, the Fort Wayne Comets, and growing up I went to their games all the time and still do. Big Comets fan. I'm like constantly standing up and, singing the songs and all that fun jazz. I fully embrace hockey culture. And when my parents would watch hockey, I kind of swayed in between the Penguins and the Blackhawks for a long time growing up. We don't have a team here in Indiana. And I really just love goalies. Favorite position in hockey by far. I think they are so cool that they can have something so small flying at them so fast, and yet somehow it doesn't go in the net. And so I ended up really loving Pittsburgh's goalie, Fleury. Well, Fleury actually got sent to the Vegas Knights. And then my senior year in college, Holly Ann Johansson and I had the opportunity to go to a Knights game while our teams were, in Vegas. And so we went to this Knights game, and I got to see Fleury in person, and then the Knights arena is just so beautiful, and I fell in love. So that's why I am a Knights fan.
I have heard the fan experience during a Knights game is incredible at T-Mobile Arena. I believe it is in Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, it is the coolest thing. It's like going to a concert and a Vegas show and a sporting event all in one.
That's fantastic. Sounds like a good time for Aaron Smith.
Absolutely. And I will say, just having lived in Vegas once or twice for the Open Championships, Women's Championships, that the community support for the Golden Knights is super strong there. So they are, Las Vegas as a whole is excited. So I'm sure they'll be the same for the Raiders once they move right off of 15. But I'm seeing a little parallel here though, because you mentioned your folks, big Pittsburgh sports fans, and the Steelers, the Pirates, Penguins all have that that black and gold color. So that had to be an easy transition when you stayed with Wichita State. They didn't have to worry about changing. Exactly.
That's funny. One more question. Actually, well, two. How did your parents have the association with Pittsburgh? You guys have family from that area?
No. I mean, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Okay.
I wish I knew, but to be honest, I think they just like them. I don't think there's any particular reason. Yeah.
I have to talk to George and Karen about this. Okay. Next question is from Earl Woods, who is a native Chicagoan. Shout out to Earl. Transplanted to LA, but he is a Blackhawks fan forever. Just want to throw that out there. He asked, were the college lane patterns at all similar to those on the PWBA? So anything you got to compete on at the collegiate level, were there any similarities and patterns in regards to the professional tour?
I would say that the Hoosier patterns and postseason are very similar, probably because they're made by the same man. So Nick Hoagland with, I believe it's H2M Management, he does the lane patterns for the Hoosier and the postseason and the collegiate ranks, and then also for the women's professional tour. And they are very similar, I would say. I actually think some of the patterns have crossed over from what I know, with slight variations either in length or volume or type of oil used. And so, yeah, they were similar, but they play much different, considering that in college we have 10 people on a pair, or you're bowling bakers. So really each person is only throwing 2 shots down their particular part of the lane. So they transition much different.
Excellent. Thanks for the questions, Chris and Earl. And if anyone else has a question, while we have Sid on during, we got about just under 20 minutes left, but we don't have any restraints here on the PWBA podcast. I mean, if it goes 2 hours, I mean, it just goes 2 hours. Hopefully that's okay with Sid. Speaking of Wichita State.
I have nothing else to do.
Oh, you got to study, though. You got to write a paper. So that is important.
I set myself up for success. My family always laughs at me. And my close friends know it. I'm not afraid to admit it. I set myself up for success. So I work really hard in the first part of the semester. Well, each of my classes are 8 weeks. So I work really hard in the first 7 weeks. So then on the 8th week, where most people are stressing, I get to be calm. And I know I can get a 50% on my paper and still get an A on my class. So I calculated the score. So I knew that it was going to be okay. And I can be calm and just write the paper.
I like that. That's a good philosophy. I took the exact opposite route. I do my best work under pressure when it comes to writing papers, but that's a different podcast. Wichita State. We're just going to start with favorite memories because I'm sure you have several.
Yeah, I think my most favorite memories from sophomore year, the ITCs were in Wichita, and the Shocker Bowling was having its very first reunion. And so all of the past alums were in town, and we as a women's team were making an incredible run to the TV show. And that particular team that year, we had 9 girls on the team, and we gelled really well on the lanes, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of. And we bowled, to be honest, I'm not really sure who we bowled leading into the TV show. We were so in the moment, I don't remember anybody we bowled during that event, but I do remember that we won 4-0, and I remember that it just felt like we were in this bubble by ourselves, and we were just competing and having so much fun. And there are a lot of times that I go back to rewatch that and figure out how we made that happen and almost how to recreate it. But that's definitely one of my favorite memories is making that TV show with that particular team.
What about Aaron? You got an answer?
Maryland Eastern Shore.
There it is, my man.
Sorry, Kayla.
Shout out to Maryland Eastern Shore and Kayla Bandy. How about toughest moments while at Wichita State?
Oh man, I think there's a lot because you know at college you grow up, and
Sure.
I grew up. And I figured out who I was. It was the first time I had been away from my family. I spent pretty much every day with my mom and dad growing up. So it was the first time I was on my own. I needed to figure out who I was. And gratefully, I had incredible coaches to be there for me through every step of the way. One of the toughest moments, my second tournament, we went to the Sandhills in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we didn't bowl good. And Coach L pulled us into a room and just let us know he was disappointed in us, not because we didn't bowl good, but because we weren't being very good teammates. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time, because in high school I bowled on a team, but it wasn't anything serious. It was just combining our scores. And then I had a teammate who I'm so grateful that she did this. She pulled me aside and she was like, listen, you were one of the worst teammates today that I've ever had. You were very selfish. And I needed that because I didn't understand what it looked like to be a good teammate. And she basically just said it to my face. And then, of course, I get picked later in the season to go to more events. And I specifically asked her for help on how to be a better teammate and what that looked like and the actions it took and the words it took to be there for my teammates. So that was really tough to hear, that I wasn't a good teammate, but also was very life-changing for me.
Are you okay with saying who this person that gave you such great advice?
Yeah, it was Bree Amidon. Yeah, she was a senior at the time.
Well, thank you, Bree, for helping Sid here. Now I can go
awesome.
bowl a tournament with her and feel better.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, Bree was definitely one of my biggest mentors. Even though I had a year with her, she was incredible. I had a couple really big peer mentors while I was at Wichita, and she was definitely one of them.
How about your singles win, Intercollegiate Singles Championship win in 2017? What do you remember about that tournament, about that event, and bringing home, although an individual title, but a national title nonetheless, back to Wichita State?
It was really cool. My freshman year, I got to bowl the singles out of a pure awful thing that happened. I took fifth at the sectional qualifier, and then one of the fellow competitors, I believe she got injured or she was sick, and Coach L called me, I believe it was 2 days before the singles, and said, you get to bowl. And I was not mentally ready for that as a freshman. I didn't understand what it meant, and lost to Robin Renslow in the match before the TV show. And that really paid off for me in the long run, that loss, because then going back my junior year and being fortunate enough to make it to national singles wise, I knew that every single match had so much possibility to happen. It really parallels the Queens event on the tour, because it is multiple games and anything can happen in that short amount of time. And so I just took it one match at a time. And in comparison to my match with Robin, I know I had one match where I was down, I believe it was 60 or so pins, and I went back to Coach L. We completely changed my game plan. I do not like throwing it fast. And we were like, okay, move right, chuck it up the track, and see what happens. And I went with that game plan actually for the rest of the event. So I don't particularly remember a lot about it because I was so focused on the team stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember Coach V coming up to me while I was on the practice pair, and he was like, you know what, Sid, just keep in mind, like, it doesn't matter what happens. We are all so proud of you. And then I win the title, and he comes up to me and he goes, that was a complete lie. This means a lot. He was like, I just didn't want you to be nervous. And he was like, we are all so proud of you. And it was just really cool, especially to have Coach L on the sidelines with me, and for him to, I couldn't do the math, if I'm being honest, the bowling math, because of the scoring at Reno. And he, there
are some tricky scoreboards out there.
Yeah. Well, you can't, it doesn't have the numbers. It just has fair or strike. And Coach L, I remember asking him in the match against Stephanie Schwartz, I was like, hey, do I need to strike here, or can it be a fair in the 10th frame? And he was like, you need to strike. I was like, oh, okay. So I go up there, and I think I 17 or I don't know, but I remember being either disappointed. I believe I was disappointed because I thought I needed to strike. And he was like, oh, I lied to you. I just wanted to make sure you were going to throw it good. And you always throw it good when you think you need to strike. I was like, what the heck?
That's fantastic.
It's a crappy veteran move right there.
Indeed.
While we're talking about that, and I was hoping to find the clip, and I could not find it in time, but one of my favorite parts about that show is after you get the trophy, you have all your teammates sitting basically to the left of where the lanes are set up, and you just start pointing, shouting at them, and it was awesome because, and I think it was something, we probably talked about after the show too, for the bowl.com story, was just how important it was, for you to win it for them too. And I just, that was just one of those cool moments that you just always remember. So, for you in that moment, just talk about that particular, wanting to, I guess, express all the good stuff towards your teammates, and then, just what they meant to your progress as a player.
Yeah, for sure. My teammates are everything because, when I walk into practice every day, it's not the trophy that I'm excited about or the potential of an ISC win, right? At the Radigan Student Center at Wichita State, they have all the Helmer Cups displayed in this incredible showcase downstairs. And you look at those every day, and we talk about winning a Helmer Cup every day. And so for me, it was sort of like winning it for them because every day they were the ones pushing me in practice or pushing me in workouts. And even, extending it further than just them because, there were people like Dasha who came before that, who had just graduated, who had pushed me, or, Bree, those girls who were there for me even before then. And then all of the alumni on top of that who, Clara, Rocio, Emily, they're all there to push us. And so it's a lot bigger than just me. And I just needed to thank them. I was like, take it. I remember I was like, guys, take it. It's ours. Like, it's not just mine at all. And it's funny because that picture is still my background on my laptop, actually.
Very nice. We'll have to, I was going to share a photo after this kind of in case you missed it. And obviously all the folks watching this now, you're not missing it, but, kind of have folks come back to Bowl TV, check it out. But I actually had the group photo of you and all your teammates with the trophy afterwards. That's the one I was going to use. I know exactly where that photo's at though in our system. So I'm going to find that. I'm going to add that to it too. So if you folks are interested in that, we got that coming up a little bit later on our social media channels. But I think we had one more Wichita State thing we wanted to.
Oh yeah, Aaron, this is your favorite one. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce it.
Bring up a particular Hoosier Classic moment with Coach Lewis and somebody forgot him.
Okay, so what had happened was we get on the bus and roll call was, I'm going to make up a time, it was 2 p.m. Let's say roll call was at 2 p.m. because the girls don't bowl till later on at the Hoosier. And so roll call is at 2 p.m. Well, Coach L is a very timely man. Shocker bowling is a very timely program. If you're not early, you're late. So we are all on the bus. I believe we were traveling 7 girls at that time. So all of us were on the bus, and we just assumed Coach L's on the bus because it's 2 p.m. And we're like, all right. And the Newman coaches were like, are you ready to go? We were like, yeah. So we left. And we get about halfway to the bowling center, and we turn around. And we are all like, what's going on? And then Coach L gets on the bus, and we realize we forgot him. That's just never good. And so we get to the bowling center and he's like, hey, you forgot your coach. And we're like, yeah, well, it's very normal in shocker bowling to do reps. So like a physical action such as a squat or a lunge or a push-up when you're in trouble. So we got to run around the bowling center for a while, run some laps around, I believe it's Western. And we got to do a lot of squats and sit-ups and push-ups before we even started our block. So word to all the future shockers, don't forget Coach L or Holly or Rick anywhere.
Sorry. That still gets me.
I mean, the rule, my argument as a senior, because I felt like I had like a little bit of row, my argument was, well, if we are late for roll call, like say we were going to the Hoosier, roll call is at 4 a.m. traditionally. So let's say I show up at 4:01, that bus is going to be gone. And it is just how it works. I get left at home because if you're not early, you're late. And if you don't want to respect time, you don't respect your teammates, and you just don't get to go. That's just how it works. And it was awesome. It taught me discipline. It taught my teammates discipline. I'm ultimately grateful for it. But I was like, man, Coach Ella, you were late to roll call. Oh, no, what do you want from us?
I remember him telling us this too at the tournament. It was just, and the look he gave afterwards was even more priceless. Unbelievable.
Oh man, it was never good when I made Coach L. I only made Coach L, I think, a little mad a couple of my times there. That was one of them. And another one was sophomore year going into nationals. The Alpha Crux had just came out. And apparently I just somehow subconsciously knew that the Alpha Crux was going to be incredible because I drilled it like 2 days before the tournament. And at WSU, you pick your arsenals 2 weeks in advance. So that way you know what they are, your teammates can learn what they are. And I had already picked that I was going to take my Crux, which I had used all season, was having a good season. I walked into the office. I was like, Coach, I got this great idea, man. I'm going to take the Alpha Crux. And he goes, no. And I was like, no, but listen, Coach, best ball ever made. Like, you don't understand. He's like, how much have you thrown it? I said, 3 games, North Rock house shot. He's like, no. And he told me to lunge to the bowling alley. And I was like, come on, man. It's fine.
Fantastic.
How many Hoosiers did you guys end up winning when you were there?
My first 3. Yes, I'm very proud of those. Those are but we also think it might have been bad luck because if you win the Hoosier, you're probably not going to win nationals. It's been kind of the theme. So we always kind of joked that we were like, okay, well, if we don't win the Hoosier, maybe we'll win nationals. And we thought that was the secret sauce senior year, but it ended up not being the secret sauce, unfortunately.
I'll still take 3 Hoosier wins, though.
Yeah.
Knowing what it is and having experienced it myself. Go ahead, Aaron.
No, I'm trying to remember. I know one of those we had a very wacky Bowl TV situation where essentially when we were on YouTube and there was some type of YouTube outage and we couldn't figure out how to show the bracket. It was for the women's, it might have been the finals. I don't know if this was one of your years or not. It was a few years back. But I ended up having to stand on one of the tables and Facebook Live the finals to our Facebook page because that was the only way we could get it out. And I'm just, that was when I think back outside the Coach L moment, that's one of them that I'm sure you guys were involved with and were wondering why in the hell is this guy standing on a table and all that good stuff.
I think that was my sophomore year, so it would have been 2016. Yeah, 26. I'm pretty sure that's the one it would have been because my freshman year, we always had interesting things happen. My freshman year, I rolled a late 6-pin. Like I thought I struck and I turned around all excited, and my teammates are like, "Oh no," because I left a pocket 6-pin, and I had no idea because who leaves a pocket 6-pin? And then it late rolled it, and I remember that because we utilized Bowl TV a lot to rewatch that one because my reaction is hysterical. And then Laura Plazas is like jumping up and down like a monkey. It's so cool. It's so funny. But yeah, I think that was sophomore year was you standing on top of the tables with the Facebook Live.
Hoosier, always interesting one way or the other.
Never fail.
But for a couple of years, the Hoosier was kind of the one event we got to on Bowl TV. But every time we were there, we always, got to see you in Wichita State. But we also got to see your folks, and obviously we're very fond of your parents. We get to see them so much. They've been so very kind to us, and also making sure we are well fed throughout the course of live stream events. But putting you on the spot, if you had to pick your mom's best dish and best dessert, what would they be?
Best dish. Oh man, I don't think it's one particular dish because I put it in a lot of different things. But she makes homemade pasta sauce. I live by that stuff. When I was in Wichita, I had her bring cases of it to me so I could use it. I refused to use store-bought sauce because it's nothing compared to my mama's. I made lazy lasagna with it last night in the Instapot. It was like the best thing ever. And then dessert, I think I have 2. One is a handheld, so it's like one she would bring to the events. Is the peanut butter cookies with the Reese's in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are good, especially if you pop them in the microwave for about 10 seconds, so you melt the chocolate a little bit. But the one that I love the most is called Chocolate Lush. It has a nut crust bottom and then a thin layer of cream cheese, whipped cream, which she puts something special in there but never really tells anybody, and chocolate pudding. And it's the best dessert. so good.
I'm on the snickerdoodle train myself.
I'm not a big
yeah.
snickerdoodle person.
Yeah, Mrs. B knows. Here's what I knew I was really, really cool with your parents is that, and always have a conversation with Mr. Brummett George, of course. And I remember him telling me about actually what you talked about at the beginning of the show when you were making the change from 15 to 14. Oh, I'm sorry, 14 to 15. And it was right before team trials. And, I feel like there probably wasn't a lot or information that everyone really knew. So the fact that he told me about it and trusted me with it, and for us to at least be prepared to kind of know what to look for during the week was pretty solid. And then also your mom making special things from a non-chocolate perspective, because I don't like chocolate. It gives me headaches for desserts. And so the fact that she takes that opportunity or the time to do that for me put me over the top. I'm like, I'm in with the Brummetts for the rest of my life. I'm good with y'all.
Yeah, she loves making desserts. It's like whenever she makes them, she has me write on them from the heart of my kitchen. And my sister and I have been telling her for years that she needs to open a bakery and name it that. Because so she always writes, and she believes that her food is made with love. And I think that's very true. And definitely my dad giving information is a big deal. He's a very secretive guy when it comes to my stuff. And I didn't want a lot of people to know I was 15 to 15 because I was scared and I didn't want a lot of people to be asking me questions. I hadn't bowled 30 games in a row with 15 pounds. I was like, am I going to make it to day 5? I don't know. So I didn't want a lot of people to know or ask questions. And gratefully I had Mike Devaney there. And I specifically remember we were bowling on a long pattern, and he came up to me, and I didn't know what was going on. I was bowling bad, and he said, "Sid, what ball do you think you should go through?" I said, "Mike, I drilled these balls 2 weeks ago. I have no idea what any of them do." I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, this is a really good opportunity to learn, and this is what I was talking about, where I wasn't ready to learn, and I was stubborn." I was like, "Dude, you could tell me to throw the red house ball, stick some grips in it, just tell me what to throw." And eventually, he helped me deduce that I should throw the Sherlock, and then everything was fine from there. But, yeah, very grateful for that.
Interesting. We got a couple more questions, and then we'll get to some of the final questions from the chat before we let you go. You were a 3-time Indiana Female Bowl of the Year. You were an Indiana High School State Champion. 2-time Indiana High School Player of the Year. And the word on the street is that Aaron Smith might have made the local paper's second team all-conference during his high school days in Indiana many years prior to that. But still in Indiana, of course. So obviously you two are from Indiana, in case everyone doesn't know that by now. If you could put together a 5-player team from Indiana, Sydney Brummett, who would it include?
That's a tough question, and it's actually a big debate going on in our state right now. I don't know if you guys know that, but between I think it's like Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, I think they're trying to put together some challenge of some sort.
Okay.
So word on the street is that that's a big talk, but I don't really entertain the idea of social media discussion very often. So if I had to create a team, I would probably say myself, because I want to bowl, and EJ for sure.
Yeah.
Ronnie Russell would be a fun one. See, my problem is I'm kind of going to pick it because it'd be fun.
It's your team.
That's true.
I mean, everyone on the team right now is really good, so I think you're good.
I think I'd have to. Matt Sanders would be one of them. We'll throw Lefty in there. The last one's hard. I think there's a guy I bowled with growing up. His name's Chris Safarth. I really looked up to him.
Oh, my man.
Yeah, I think
he went to Purdue.
He did, yeah. I bowled these events called Iowa SBTs. They were ran by a really amazing woman named Louise Lesser, and she, pardon me, my laptop's going to die, and I don't want that to happen.
No.
But she, there we go, all fixed. She ran these events, and I started bowling those when I was 12. That's how I got to go to Junior Gold. And people like Chris and a couple other really incredible people who were much older than me took me under their wing and taught me a lot about bowling. So I think I would definitely want to bowl with Chris. I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun.
I bowled with Chris or against him a lot collegiately during his time at Purdue, and I was at LU. And I actually used to bowl against Louise's son, Justin,
Yes.
a lot back in my early youth days, or I should say late youth days, across the scholarship tours as well.
Yeah, they were a really great family, and they did a lot for the bowling community.
How about that? Nicely done. All right, Aaron, what do you think? A couple questions from the chat, then we'll end it with your question.
I like it. Yeah, let's get back to the chat. I know we got another one from Chris, and I think another one from Earl. So, I'll let you kick that off.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. We've got Earl. Earl asks, how do you determine what ball is right for the conditions that you're bowling on? So, long versus short, heavy volume, light volume, strong, weaker covers, etc. How do you determine those things? What to throw?
Yeah, so basically, a lot of what I determine is I look at the volume of the pattern, and that's going to determine the surface of my bowling ball that I use, because the surface is the most important piece. So if I need my ball to slow down sooner, I'm going to use a stronger grit, so like a 500 or 1,000 pad. If I need it to slow down later, my ball is going to be a little bit more shiny. And then the length of the pattern is dictating the ball that I use. So, for instance, if I'm bowling on something longer, I'm going to want something that's going to make the transition and hook in the correct part of the lane. So I look at things a little bit differently, I would say, than some people. It's less about how much the ball is going to hook and rather where it's going to hook from the front to back part of the lane. And that's something I really had to learn when I went out on the women's tour, was where is my ball hooking in relation to the mid lane and the pattern rather than how much is it hooking.
Nice answer. All right. This one is from Chris. You talked about how people have helped you within Team USA. Have there been people on the PWBA who have become mentors or role models for you when you began on tour? And then subsequently, have you become a mentor to others or new bowlers since that time?
Yeah. So going out on tour, Kelly Kulik has been one of my biggest mentors. I'm so grateful for her. She has taught me a lot about just how to be a good human being while being on tour, and what it takes to be respected by other people out there. And I'm so grateful for her. Danielle McEwen has always been there for me as well since my start of time on Team USA, and really grateful to get to ask the GOAT some questions. So grateful for Liz. She is always willing to listen and answer questions. And then one person I've grown really close with, and I'm so grateful for her friendship more than anything, is Stephanie Johnson. She has really been there for me through personal things on the tour more than anything. And just like in college, how I talked about we grow up there, I'm also growing up on tour. So sure. I'm really thankful for her, and she walking me through a lot of things that I don't quite understand or need some help with.
And now then, you share a staff.
Yes, and I was so excited. I love Storm Products. I think they are not only the best manufacturer in bowling, not only I think they create the best bowling balls on the market, but also they have the best people. And if I need something and I were to call Bill or call Gary, they would be there. And that's what I really love about Storm, is they take care of their people first. And man, I just love that. They make me all giddy inside. In relation to people I've become mentors to, I don't think they're on tour yet. It kind of stinks because they were trying to come out this season. And it's a couple of girls I went to school with, and I'm trying to constantly send them messages encouraging them because I know they were looking forward to competing. So hopefully they get that chance to. I know as elite athletes, the uncertainty is hard because financially, some of us rely on the PWBA for our long-term yearly finances in the long run of things. And some people plan for the finances that they're now using to pay for their rent or their food that they were going to be using for the tour stops now that they're out of work. So it's difficult, and I just want those girls to know that I'm there for them, even though they are just starting and learning.
Well, that's some real stuff right there. Appreciate that, Sid. Final question from Earl. I feel like this is a common question. How does one who perhaps is a predominantly per se league player prepare for something like the USBC Open Championships or the USBC Women's Championships, where there are sport patterns involved, and you may not know the patterns in advance? So this is something that you have a little bit of experience, obviously, on tour. You don't really know until you get there. You get to look at the graph in that sense on tour. You don't get to look at it sometimes in other situations. So how do you prepare?
Yeah, so I actually love bowling when I have no idea what's going to happen. I love bowling on house shots. And the reason is because I can play any part of the lane. Now, what's interesting is you need to pick the completely wrong bowling ball. So, for instance, when I was at WSU, Coach L put out different patterns every day on the lane. But I only took 2 balls to practice. I took an IQ Tour and a spare ball. That was it. So I had to learn to use different versatility skills to allow that IQ Tour to be the right bowling ball. So it allowed me to learn to slow down, speed up, increase my rev rate, decrease my rev rate, increase axis rotation, and decrease it. So then I make my 1 IQ Tour more like 8 bowling balls rather than 1. And I think that's my biggest piece of advice is instead of worrying about the pattern, worry about how you can make yourself the most versatile, so that way when you get to take 6 bowling balls, it's really like you get to take 36. And it doesn't matter what you see, but rather that you'll be able to combat anything that's on the lane.
Great answers, great questions. Appreciate everyone in the chat for dropping those. Earl, thanks, by the way. Earl loves the show, and we appreciate that, Earl. I hope everyone else has loved it to this point also. And we'll let Aaron Smith finish it out here with Sid the Kid.
All right, Sydney, binge watch recommendations. Go.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I'm a reality TV buff, so that's kind of hard. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. I watch Survivor, The Challenge, Big Brother, The Bachelor. Like, I just like reality TV. My favorite is The Challenge, though. It comes on at the same time as Survivor, and I'm obsessed. I was obsessed growing up with MTV's The Real World because my sister's 15 years older than me, so it was like the most incredible thing to her, and so I always watched it because I wanted to be cool like my sister. And so a lot of the people from that show are now on The Challenge, and so I watched that. But if I had to binge watch things, Suits is very good. And I don't know what the new Netflix series is called. I watched it in literally 2 days.
All American.
What is it? No, I did watch that. That is so good. It's something The Banks. Oh, what is that called? On the Banks, maybe?
I think I know what you're talking about.
I watched it in 2 days. You're not going to remember the title when you watch it in 2 days.
That's a fair point.
The Outer Bank? Is that it?
Yes,
Probably not.
The Outer Banks.
Is that it?
That is it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Outer Banks, yep.
How about that?
It's so good. It's about this kid and his dad disappeared at sea. I'll try not to give too much away. His dad disappears at sea. He has this close group of friends, and they go on a treasure hunt. And it's about their adventures with this treasure hunt, and it's like kind of like Romeo and Juliet-ish with the love story that goes on. It's pretty good. I like it.
Okay. Outer Bank.
It's number 3 in the U.S. today, according to Netflix.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to have to check it out.
All right. I have a follow-up question, though, to the reality TV show question. Because similar to our Ultimate Queen's Bracket Challenge, there's a website called The Ringer that's running a similar thing where they took 64 reality stars and basically allowed the fans to vote on them to pick the best reality TV star of all time. So if you had to pick one star, one reality player from all these shows that you like, who is your favorite all time?
All right, there's this dude. His name is Bananas. So bad. But his name is Johnny Bananas. And I like him because he is determined and he's dedicated and he's just like killer at these challenges. He's on The Challenge. He's from the real world. And he's very fit, but he's also hysterical and just like relentlessly himself and just unapologetically is going to be Johnny Bananas. And if you don't like it, he doesn't care. And I really appreciate that about him. I'm very emotionally attached to a lot of these players on the challenge because they come back reoccurringly. So each season they bring in new people, but they also bring back veterans every year. And some I don't like, and others I am obsessed with, like them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a good pick because right now I'm taking a look at their bracket, and he is he's actually in the championship match. They're down to their
Nice.
Championship match. So
I didn't even know what this was.
How about
Who's
that?
he facing? That's the real question.
Some guy named CT.
Okay, see, that's hard.
I
CT
don't
is
know.
a very loving man, and he has a family, but I would have to pick Bananas.
What shows were they from?
They're both on the challenge.
Okay.
In the real world. Yep, they both are. CT just got kicked off of this season of the challenge. I know a lot about this.
This is amazing.
That did work out fantastically well. Just the timing of
That did. Nicely done. Any final thoughts, Aaron?
No, I'm just once again thankful for Sydney finding some time to join us here on the PWBA podcast. Obviously, go Indiana. Even though I'm here in Texas, very, very excited to have the Indiana connection here because I don't feel there's a lot of players on tour from Indiana. So this is cool for me. Enjoyed it very much, and thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I was really excited when Emil sent me the message. So thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really grateful to be a part of the PWBA in general and thankful that it exists.
And a couple things, Sid. Where can fans and follow you on social media?
Yeah, on Facebook, you can follow me at Sydney Brummett-athlete. I post everything related to my bowling there. And then on Instagram, it is Sid Brummett. And I will say that is probably the platform to follow me on. I am really dedicated to giving some good content on there. So you can see like a day in the life of me all the time on my story.
Thank you, Sid, and good luck with your paper and, of course, with the rest of grad school. When are you scheduled to be graduate?
December.
Okay, perfect. Well, early congratulations because I know you're going to do well. That is going to do it for episode 10, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back live on Monday, and it's kind of like GOAT week next week on the PWBA podcast. We'll have Kelly Kulick on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, right, Aaron? Is that right? And then we'll have Liz Johnson on Wednesday. So get your questions ready for both Kelly and Liz on next week. We'll be going to shifting Monday and Wednesdays for the foreseeable future. So Mondays and Wednesdays will be live on Bowl TV for the PWBA podcast. So for Aaron Smith, for Sydney Brummett, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Brummett as well, and everyone back, of course, who watched this, of course, on Wichita State. My name is Emil Williams Jr. We will see you next week on the PWBA podcast. Stay safe, folks.